Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, just one day left ahead of fourth elections in Israel, President Rivlin voting for his fifth and final time in office. Meanwhile, we dive into the Likud party under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for the last segment in ILTV's Knesset Party's Breakdown. And finally, ahead of the coming Passover holidays, Yad-Ezra V-Shulamit providing for those most at risk. Stay tuned to learn how you can lend a hand. It's the night before elections, and the feelings of anxiety are way up. The nearly year-long anti-Netanyahu demonstrations clearing their camps in Jerusalem, protest leaders saying that they've finished their historic role as the final polls are published. Again, the latest numbers putting Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud party in the lead with 30 seats, followed by Yesh Atid with 18, the New Hope Party and Yamina with 10 each, the Joint Arab List with 8, Shas and UTJ getting 8 and 7 respectively, Israel Beitenu and Labour with 6 each, Religious Zionists with 5, and finally Ram, Meretz and the Blue and White parties each just barely passing the threshold with the minimum of 4 seats. The actual results will likely take days or even well over a week to come in though, with delays in the count expected due to the Passover holiday, the COVID pandemic, and a rise in so-called double envelope ballots, which are counted last. Likewise, because of the expected count delay and in the wake of the failed unity coalition, President Rivlin saying that he will not act to help form another unity government, nor will he seek preliminary consultations on potential nominees for prime minister, instead choosing to wait at least 2 weeks for the final results before meeting with any party leaders. Finally, as for the future coalition, various leaders making last-minute promises again that may or may not surprise. Ultra-Orthodox UTJ party leader Moshe Gafni, for one, saying that the Haredim or the Haredi parties will weigh their options after elections based on the results, and that last month's pledge to only sit with Netanyahu is meaningless. Meanwhile, Naftali Bennett from the Yamina party signing a pledge on Sunday to never support a government in which Yesh Atid's Yair Lapid was prime minister. But rival party leaders Gideon Sa'ar and Yair Lapid himself are likewise saying that this pledge should be taken with a grain of salt. Lapid specifically alleging that Bennett sounds very different behind closed doors. And joining me now with more in the hours leading up to Israel's fourth serial election, Israeli journalist and attorney Ben-Dror Yamini. Ben-Dror, as always, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Now, you never liked speculating too early, but now the final polls are in. What do you make of them? Do you have any predictions that maybe stray from their predictions?
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I'm willing to predict, I have to admit, because we really don't have any idea of what is going to happen. We just know one thing for sure, that the right-wing bloc is going to win. I mean, comparing to the last election, when they had the same bloc, they had 58 seats in the Knesset. Right now, they're going to have, without Avigdor Lieberman, they're going to have 70 seats in the Knesset, which means that there is a big change. It has nothing to do with the political views about Palestinians, about what should be the solution, 2 states or not 2 states. It has to do with the whole protest against Netanyahu. This is the outcome of yes, Bibi, or not, not Bibi. We are paying the price for this campaign against PP.
Well, but I'd like to dive maybe a little bit deeper into
right-wing bloc is about to win, even if Benjamin Netanyahu himself is not going to win.
Well, so I want to dive more into the coalition building and the possibilities here, because you mentioned that the right-wing bloc is massive with almost 80 seats in the Knesset right now. But if we bring up the graphic right now again of the coalition breakdowns, we have the left. As you said, with Yesh Atid, Blue and White, Israel Beitenu, in this case, Meretz and Labour, coming up to 38 seats, opposite the right wing's 50, while we have 32 that are undecided. Because again, you have these 4 parties who have not pledged in any direction, specifically Bennett and Sa'ar.
Yes, this is, I would call it the Israeli paradox. I mean, and we are going to face this kind of paradox tomorrow evening when we will have the results. Speaking about the blocks, yes, nothing is clear. There is nothing we can predict, unfortunately. We just know one thing, which is that the whole struggle about Bibi himself was not useful for the protest campaign against Bibi. That's what we know for sure for the moment. But who is going to form the coalition? We have no idea. We just cannot predict. And I'm not sure that tomorrow evening we will have the results, the final results, because the polls show a kind of even between the two blocks in favor of people of Netanyahu and against him. So we cannot really know exactly what is going to happen. We will have to wait at least until Wednesday in order to begin to know who is going to win.
All right, well, so I guess my final question is, President Rivlin has recently come out saying that he will not push for another unity coalition. Do you think that it was a mistake to have a unity government, or was it just a mistake to have a unity government with Netanyahu and Gantz?
No, it was not. It was not a mistake by President Rivlin. It was not a mistake because, unfortunately, we are already experienced with what happened with the unity governments. I have to admit that for myself, I published articles again and again in favor of unity governments. I cannot publish that kind of article anymore because now we know that it's not working. I mean, not that it's not working generally. Maybe if it was not with Netanyahu, it could work. And let me tell you, Israel needs a unity government. But under the circumstances and under the experience with the blue and white and the Likud government, we cannot ask for that anymore. So unfortunately, Rivlin was right to say that he is not going to force any kind of unity government.
All right, Ben Yemini, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, now we all know the names, but what do they stand for? Well, depending on who you ask, the answer may be very, very different. So hopefully we can shed some light on the final segment of ILTV's Knesset Party's breakdown for Israel's elections 2021. Tonight, focusing on the Likud party and its leader, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Likud, or the Consolidation Party, is a secular, center-right-wing party founded by Israeli revolutionary leader Menachem Begin. It's also the first right-leaning party to ever lead the Israeli government, and since its founding in 1973, Likud has subsequently led the country through many major milestones, including the peace agreement with Egypt, Jewish immigration campaigns from the former Soviet Union and Ethiopia, the Gaza disengagement plan, the construction of the Green Line security barrier, several wars, and the acceleration of the settlement projects in Judea and Samaria. In fact, just recently, Likud also led the country through the world's most efficient COVID vaccine campaign and the signing of the historic Abraham Peace Accords, with the promise of more to come, all under current Likud chairman Benjamin Netanyahu, who is Israel's longest-serving prime minister.
I appreciate very much Bibi Netanyahu because he does everything for us. He's very clever, he's very good prime minister, and he saved us. He saved us one time from Iran and one time the corona. We have a beautiful life here.
Meanwhile, ahead of renewed elections, the party is touting the same platform that it's had since 2015, including tackling the housing crisis, reducing organized crime, promoting free economy and competitive market policies, and increasing, if not maintaining, Israel's security with respect to Palestinian and Iranian-born terrorism. So how then does the Likud party, and more specifically Benjamin Netanyahu, equally inspire one of the largest and longest ongoing protests in Israel's history, with tens of thousands demonstrating every week for the better part of a year?
We are here to protest against Netanyahu and his corrupted government. This is our last chance before the election. We want everyone to come and vote to change. Vote to exchange this government. 3 days from now, there will be the election, and we would like to see a change. This is why I'm here. This is what everybody here is expecting.
Well, putting aside those who disagree with the Likud on the whole, the party's last few years under Netanyahu have still been rife with controversy. For one, the prime minister currently is facing trial in 3 different corruption cases, charges including graft, bribery, and breach of trust. And his apparent micromanagement style has allegedly contributed to recent Likud members defecting, including New Hope Party leader Gideon Sa'ar. Netanyahu has also been accused of fomenting anti-Arab and anti-immigrant sentiments, has shown willingness to sit with politicians holding extremist views, and consistently partners with the Haredi parties, which many left-wing voters argue wield too much control. Case in point, The Netanyahu-led government reneged on a compromise for a secular prayer space at the Western Wall, adopted the nation-state bill, which upset many left-wing and Arab Israelis, warned against false conversions to Judaism following a recent court ruling, faltered in the COVID response within the Haredi communities, and arguably plunged Israel into repeating elections. First in 2019 for failing to develop a draft law for yeshiva students, then later in 2020 for refusing to pass a 2-year budget as agreed upon in the Unity Coalition framework with Blue and White Party leader Benny Gantz. Again, though, for every detractor, there are several supporters, with the majority of those polled saying that they'd still prefer Netanyahu to continue as premier, especially given his arguably tough stance on terror, open economy policies, and the recently signed normalization deals.
ישראל זקוקה לממשלה חזקה, ממשלה יציבה, ממשלה ציונית.
All right, now today marks International Water Day, and so to celebrate, we sent our very own ILTV crew to the south to see how Israel, despite being an arid country, succeeds in thriving with water, especially in the south, which is made mostly of desert terrain. And we went together with JNF, who, as part of their work, regularly helps these miraculous places. Lauren Izo with the report.
It makes up more than 70% of the Earth and 60% of our bodies. But what happens when water is nearly impossible to come by? Here in Israel, more than half the land area is made up of dry, arid desert. That's why we've had to come up with creative solutions to stay hydrated. Israel is home to some of the most advanced and innovative solutions in water conservation technology. Today, Israel recycles about 85% of its water, the highest in the world, and 50% of the water used for agriculture is a product of recycling. The Halutza communities, once a dry and barren desert, are the embodiment of modern-day pioneering, supported by philanthropic movements like Jewish National Fund USA.
We are using the NFT hydroponics. It's built with a tunnel that you grow inside the greens. It saves water and it gives you advanced growing.
Their investment in cutting-edge water solutions like hydroponic farming has helped Halutza thrive as one of the most successful agricultural communities in the Negev, allowing them to grow exceptional crops that are sold throughout the world. We may be standing in the middle of the desert, but by looking around, you'd never know it. East of Halutza, in Beersheva, the city landscape has been completely transformed into a water city in the Negev desert after a world-class $300 million urban revitalization initiative, also supported by Jewish National Fund USA.
Welcome to the biggest lake in Israel, here in Beersheva. You know, the city of Beersheva, the capital city of the Negev, the metropolis city for over 1 million residents that live here in the area. If you would have told us 10 or 15 years ago that this would happen, nobody would have believed it. I'm a Beersheva, born and raised here, and having this oasis changes the entire experience of actually living here in the Negev.
And it all comes down to this: water recycling. This is the Ramat Aviv Water Treatment Center. This one specifically strengthens the development of sustainable communities in the desert and near the Egyptian border.
We are at the facilities of the Ramat Negev water treatment plant, treating effluents, municipal effluents, from the military camps surrounding us and the villages. Hopefully in the very near future, we shall accommodate much more water effluents coming from other nearby regions. We need the water here.
JNF USA has made it their mission to support Israel's effort to create advanced technology for sustainability and become a global leader in water innovation. The advances in water technology and ecology in Israel have increased the country's water economy by over 15%, and that number is only increasing.
2 decades ago, Israel was dealing with water shortage and droughts, and as part of Jewish National Fund USA's mission to help develop the Negev and Galilee in Israel, water was such a crucial, essential part of our investment. And working together with so many different communities and organizations and researchers and businesses in order to be able to create opportunities to build life here in the Negev, to build life in the north, to be able to create something out of nothing, it all starts with the water. So for us at Jewish National Fund USA, World Water Day is a time where we celebrate and rejoice how far we've come from Israel being a country that was dealing with drought to now recycling over 85% of all of our wastewater.
The value of water is about so much more than just its price. Its importance is undeniable to every country, community, and individual around the world. Lauren Izzo, ILTV.
All right, Israel continuing to roll back sweeping coronavirus restrictions on gatherings, travel, and on schools. But while the future looks bright, health officials are keeping a close eye on infection figures. Leading the world in inoculations per capita, Israel's coronavirus cabinet voting again to gradually ease airport restrictions. As of Sunday, 9,000 Israelis reportedly passing through Ben Gurion Airport. However, Prime Minister Netanyahu is worried, saying that the reopening risks allowing virus variants into the state. Additionally, many health officials, including coronavirus czar Nachman Ash, deeply fearing these next 2 weeks as restrictions continue easing on the eve of elections and on Passover and the Ramadan holidays. Meantime, health officials are also deciding to close major vaccination sites in order to focus on smaller communities where immunization rates are low, particularly in predominantly Arab communities. And perhaps most dangerous of all, certain individuals taking advantage of this novel period to make a quick buck at the expense of the nation's health. The black market for green passports exploding in popularity, with police on Sunday arresting a 21-year-old resident of northern Israel suspected of selling fake vaccination certificates via the Telegram app. Moving on, Palestinian Authority Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki returning to the Palestinian Authority this week to a bit of a surprise. Israel having revoked his political VIP pass for expedited movement through security crossings. And this after Maliki's meeting with ICC Chief Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda, where Maliki asked to accelerate the war crimes probes against Israel. With us to discuss is Professor Avi Bell, Faculty of Law at both Bar-Ilan University and the University of San Diego. Professor, thank you so much for being with us. Now, while I understand the desire to push back on the ICC probes and on the PA for promoting them, on the surface, this move looks fairly petty. What do you make of it?
I think it's a nice first step, but it's only a first step. Let's understand that what's going on here is a political process, and the one point of weakness in the political process is that the Palestinians' cooperation is absolutely necessary for the ICC to go forward. And so anything that will bring the Palestinians to rethink their decision to push forward is helpful. We should have done a lot more. We should have done it a lot earlier, but this is a good start.
Well, so that being said, isn't Israel's involvement or acting this way, is that fair in a sense to get involved in a probe like that? Does it hurt Israel in the argument, in the probe, in the investigation? What are the ramifications of this move?
There is no argument here, right? To talk about this as if this were a legal proceeding in which Israel will make some arguments and the other side will make some arguments and the judges will decide, is to fail to understand the process at all. This is a political process. We understand the outcome of any legal argument, which is that Israel will lose. Israel does not want to get involved in a legal argument. What Israel wants to do is create a political situation where the ICC reconsiders the political decision that it's made. It's decided to collaborate with the PLO to go after Israelis. What we need to do is to create a situation where it's not worth it for the ICC and the PLO to carry on this collaboration against Israelis. The only way to do that is political pressure and non-cooperation. It is to make it difficult for them to go forward.
All right, I see. Now, IDF Chief of Staff Aviv Kochavi is condemning The Hague and the ICC probes themselves. He's saying that the ICC is living in the old world and is unfamiliar with the new age of terror tactics. He says that the IDF soldiers encounter daily things that there's a gulf between what they understand and what's actually happening on the ground and how the ICC perceives these actions. What's your take on Kochavi's assertions? Is international law in some way lacking in understanding and space for providing context?
No, I think that the understanding here, and I'm sorry to say this, is General Kochavi's. What he's failing to understand is the nature of this process. We don't have a legal problem here. It's not like we have a problem that Israel is either failing to follow international law. Israel is following international law. Nor is there a problem that international law doesn't recognize the criminality of Palestinian terrorism. It does. The problem is institutional. The problem is biased institutions like the ICC that give a free pass to Palestinian criminals while going after innocent Israelis. And so trying to tweak the law is not going to help us. What needs to be changed is the institutions. The institutions have to become less biased, or frankly, if they're going to continue being biased like the ICC, they have to be defanged.
All right. Professor Avi Bell, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Now, finally, Passover is around the corner, and while Israel is on its way out of the pandemic, the effect of the coronavirus is still felt all over the world, especially economically. And that's why this year has seen a dramatic rise in the number of people asking for donations, and charities have been working overtime to meet the demand of those who are down on their luck. So joining us with more from one such company is Shalom Zaidel of Yad-Ezra V-Shulamit. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
All right, so my first question is, tell us more about this Passover initiative and how many people are you actually aiming to help?
Yeah, our numbers have exploded exponentially, honestly, frankly, skyrocketed. There's what we call, not only us, but other organizations call the new poor. There are tens of thousands of additional people because of Corona, which we call it, the world calls it COVID, we call it Corona, that have come to our services. We've always served everybody, Aaron, but we're seen a major increase of all sectors of society, which is from everywhere. The Ethiopian community, Russian community, Holocaust survivors, regular secular, people of Israel. And it's tens of thousands of more demands.
Can you expand a little bit about how your work, Yad-Ezra V-Shulamit, has expanded in the last year during the pandemic?
Well, we used to have 4 or 5 trucks. A year later, we're up to 10 trucks. We're literally doubled the amount of people, close to the amount, and we serve 47 cities across Israel. We have 80 location points where people either pick up or bring through volunteers, and people do pick up. So we're more than 200,000 people that we're going to be touching. 50,000 food baskets, food vouchers will be given out this year, have already mostly been given out, and still next few days to go.
And I'm guessing that it's still a long way to go.
Honestly, yes. It's an amazing and very difficult, what's the word for it? Just logistically way of being able to give out 50,000 food baskets and vouchers.
So what's in the Passover kit? What's included?
It's the regular staple items that you can imagine. Of course, it's boxes of matzah, grape juice, wine, eggs, chicken or vouchers for chickens. There's people in Britain who literally donate tens of thousands of the cost of chickens. Of course, fruits and vegetables, canned items, sugar, salt, mayonnaise, things like that.
Household goods.
Household goods, and people, for families who need it. And there are tens of thousands.
Huge difference, of course.
Big time.
So, all right, where can viewers go to donate? How can we help from home? And how many volunteers have you expanded to include?
Oh gosh, when you imagine like 47 cities and 80 location points, it's exploded. There were, certainly more than 1,000 volunteers, that's for sure.
Which shows an incredible, Israeli community.
Which has always been that way, as we see. Yad-Ezra has been around for 25 years or so. We're looking, people to at least minimally donate a food basket. It's $100. A large basket is $160. It's on our website, yadezra.net. We need everybody's support. We're getting a lot of it, but we need more of it because of the exponential growth of the people who are the new poor, unfortunately, in Israel.
All right. Well, Shalom Zaidel, Yad-Ezra V-Shulamit. Again, I'll tell everybody at home, go to yadezra.net and see if you can pitch in. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having us, Aaron.
All right, now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight you can expect partly cloudy skies and a warm low of about 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow, just in time for elections, you can expect cloudy skies but a dramatic rise in temperatures for a high of around 87 degrees Fahrenheit or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, but that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.3 shekels to the American dollar and 2.64 shekels to the Canadian dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to visit the all-new and improved ILTV website at iltv.tv and subscribe to our newsletter for the latest updates while you're there. I'm Aaron Porras. Thank you so much for watching.